But thank you very much for coming. I know it's sort of the end of a long, and it sounds like a very productive conference. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it for the previous days. I just got in last night. But I was reading the graffiti wall and been talking to some of the participants, and it sounds like it's just been a fabulous conference so far, a lot of connections and things. I have got the pleasurable task of spending some time with you today to tell you about a wonderful success story in literacy and essential skills. And I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about those success stories over the last few days. This particular one took place this summer in a little town called Prince Edward, a little community called Prince Edward County. Now, this is my coordination, talking and technology. I might get a little bit out of sync here, so bear with me, please. Oh, there we go. So what we're going to go over, and I don't want to be too much of a talking head up here, but I'm going to give you an overview about the program that we did, some of how we went about designing it and the content that we put into it, and some of our successes and lessons learned. I'd really like to, at the end of it, spend some time to get some of your feedback and questions. Please feel free throughout as I'm talking up here, to put up your hand, ask questions. I'm a fairly organic speaker, so please feel free to join in the discussion as I go along. Just to give you an overview, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Prince Edward Learning Centre, it's a very small but extremely vibrant learning center in the heart of Prince Edward County. It's got a very good, actually Linda Connolly sitting here today, she's the executive director, and she's spearheaded so much great learning in our little rural community over the last 15 plus years. Prince Edward Learning Centre is known to be innovative. It's known to participate in the community. They've run projects like a trails group that have gone in and actually worked on our Millennium Trail, which is a rural trail throughout the county, and engaging learners in that whole process. At the same time, giving back to the community. They've got an extremely well-organized Students' Council that raises money and awareness within the community, as well as organizing trips and learning opportunities for the learners at the center. They've been involved in all aspects of the community, and it's been a huge success within our community. We've been very, very fortunate. Our community is rather unique as well. For those of you that aren't familiar with the county, it's a small island-like community where basically we've got a couple of bridges and a canal that sort of make us an island. We are very much a rural area. Our largest center is Picton, which has 4,500 people. The entire population of the island is 2,500. We have no public transit. We have no big industry. We have no manufacturing. Over the last 10 years, and indeed for the last 100 years, it's been very much a rural economy, and it's starting to build as something called a creative rural economy. For those of you here in the big city, you might have heard about the county and the wineries, the bed and breakfast, the cycling. All of the economic development has been focused on creating these small businesses, entrepreneurial, very creative businesses to fuel our economy, and it's worked. Between the last census period, we've only gained 500 people in population, but we've gained 1,700 jobs. That's enormous for that area. They are all small businesses and entrepreneurial. So when we went to design this program, we had to keep into consideration where people are going to work. The reality of it is the work is there, but it's in small entrepreneurial businesses. It's also an opportunity for, hi, come on in, for people to actually engage in that as well. All of the, sorry. Yep. All of the planets align that there's a lot of support for people to actually start their own businesses as well and create their own economies. When WLES funding came out last year, Linda had the great foresight to combine the essential skills piece of literacy and our local economy. We basically wanted to do three different things. We wanted to capture the skills needed to really participate in our local economy. Again, we don't have manufacturing. It's all small businesses. It's all mostly owner-operated businesses. We wanted to build on the super successful Leisha curriculum, which I'm going to go into a little bit more to tell you a bit about it. And yes?
WLAS.
Oh, sorry. It's Workplace Literacy and Essential Skills funding that came available about this time last year, was it, Linda?
That was the first round, and this time it was community, workplace and community in the first round, and then this time it was just workforce.
That's right. So it was real focus on workplace skills, project funding. So this was a pilot program that we ran. The third thing that we want to do, and again, is really engage people in the spirit of community, because we are a very isolated community, and building on the success of the Learning Center, it was a key pillar of learning and participating and engaging. So those were our three main things. When we looked at capturing the skills needed to participate, specifically, we were looking at the world of entrepreneurial and small business. Specifically, we were looking at the Group 2 essential skills, working with others, all the thinking skills, continuous learning. Those were ones that we'd sort of isolated as being really important in this sort of creative rural economy. The other thing that was really important was to foster a familiarity and a comfort with these kind of creative businesses. We've got things like a cooperage, building barrels for the wine industry. We've got soap makers. We've got artisan cheese makers. We've got fairly high-end restaurants. So it's building a comfort and familiarity with how these businesses are put together and the dynamic that goes in behind it. We also wanted to make sure that the skills that people were able to get would also help them with their own creative side, that perhaps they had something to contribute to this rural creative economy, because that's the great thing about these small economies, is that anybody can participate. Really, you can. And from an economic standpoint, it's sort of a foolproof economy, because you can always have something going on. It's some extra income. Again, when you're isolated in rural areas, it's something you can do from home. A lot of the cottage industries, those types of things. The Leisha program, we've got Leslie Hamilton here as well, and you'll want to talk to her afterwards, because I'm going to wax poetic for a moment about the Leisha curriculum. It was created, correct me if I'm wrong, about 2 or 3 years ago through some other project funding, and it focused on, Leisha stands for Literacy Essential Skills in Industrial Arts. And Literacy Ontario's Central South created this curriculum, and it's brilliant. And it's looking at essential skills and marrying it with what are called industrial arts. And it ranges from stained glass making to jewelry making, blacksmithing, mosaics. Those are the 4 that we concentrated on. But there's also welding, carpentry. There's quite a long list, and it continues to grow. Highly recommend that you talk to Leslie. I've got some of the resources online for you as well to look at. Leisha. Lesia. Yes. If you have the flash drive from the conference, I've got all of the electronic links to all of the things that I'll be mentioning. So they just have to go in and click on them. Yeah. So at the back of the presentation, there are links to all those pages, and yes, I say corral Leslie, because she's fabulous. One of the reasons, and again, rather than reinventing the wheel, the Leisha curriculum allowed us, number one, a very cost-effective, sort of ready-to-use curriculum that already had built-in essential skills. It already had built-in that creative side, and it was. It just worked beautifully for us. And again, it's I'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's a great curriculum. So to really be able to use that resource that had already been developed, and that was very low cost. Again, the third thing was engaging the community. So that was sort of part of our project program scope. We wanted to create an entrepreneurial workshop. We wanted to engage participants. We had to have that combination of online, classroom, and hands-on learning as well. And our whole goal was to develop employability skills for an entrepreneurial small business economy. To do that, a small little shopping list was developed. We wanted to participants would co-create a business so that they could run locally. They would create the products themselves that would be sold. They would design and produce all the marketing materials. They would track inventory, research materials, keep the books, sell the product, and donate the proceeds to a charity. All this was to be done cooperatively so that all the essential skills were brought into play. We did this in a couple of ways. Being a pilot program, we were able to try a couple of different things. The first program that we designed was an 8-week program. And we did a week of orientation. We did 2 weeks of the Alicia material, so we did 2 weeks of stained glass. We did 2 weeks working on the business. We did 2 more weeks of jewelry making, and then we did a final week of wrap-up. Our second program that we ran a 4-week program. We wanted to see the efficacy of the 2 different time periods, and also we found that with the 8 weeks, sometimes some people was hard to commit, especially in the summertime, to be able to do that. Our second one, we did a 4-week program following the same format. We did a week of orientation, we did a week of blacksmithing, and then we did a week on the business and a final wrap-up week in the final. It worked great. What we really wanted to do was introduce essential skills at a more complex level. Again, when you're looking at essential skills, you know that you've got the varying different levels. In an entrepreneurial small business setting, most of those essential skills are engaged at the higher complexity levels necessarily, because you are running the business, co-running the business. So we really wanted to be able to demonstrate essential skills at the higher complexity levels. And that's why we had a program scope as it was. For our design and content, the design part, there were 3 things that were important. The first one was shaping the environment. The second was collaborative group learning. And the third was connecting to creative space. Shaping the environment, we did something a little bit differently. We did not have a traditional classroom. We set up like a boardroom. You walk into this room, it was stark white when they walked in. We had a table with chairs around, so everybody was equal. We sat in a circle. We had flip charts, we had markers, we had whiteboards, we had bulletin boards, and the intent was to create an atmosphere of inquiry. With the exception of the Alicia material, everything else was co-created. At the end of the session, at the end of the program, the room was absolutely papered from ceiling to floor, wall to wall. Things were laid on top with all the ideas, all the thinking that was created by the group. Different colors, we had drawings, we had maps, we had everything was out there. It was not a traditional classroom in that sense. In the middle of the table, there were markers and pens, there was paper. It was very much a very creative, very open learning concept. Part of that was to encourage that inquiry and that co-inquiry. It was also to help replicate in a workplace, because in a workplace it's not a classroom. In a workplace, it is about talking to people. It is about co-creating things, especially in a small business and entrepreneurial. So making that shift from a classroom learning to collaborative learning. The collaborative group learning, I have to admit my bias. I'm not from the teaching world. I'm from the training and development world of organizations and organization effectiveness. I come from a background of working with individuals once they're already in the workplace and struggling. I have had years of seeing people come in and have all the best intentions and then start to fail. And again, a lot of times it was their grasp on those essential skills and the ability to use those essential skills. So that was my bias coming in. So what we created was collaborative learning, in that it's social learning. We learn from each other, and that everybody has something to contribute, and that it's important to participate. And this is the crux and what small business owners need to have in their employees. It also builds self-confidence, self-awareness, and it is it's a tool that you can take further on. It is so imperative to be able to access your essential skills through the ability to collaborate. And again, through all these, you can hear the levels of the essential skills coming out. In that case, I was less a teacher and more a facilitator. By the end of the 8-week program, about halfway through, physically I was in the back of the room, and it was the team that was leading the learning. This is how it works in business. This is how it works in the real place. This is the expectation that people going into a creative rural economy would be expected to act in an entrepreneurial business. So that's what we created.